Hi, Matt with eTrailer. If you have a 2015 Toyota Tacoma and you want to give it a little bit more protection from the elements and give it a cleaner look overall, then the Truxedo TruXport soft roll-up tonneau cover is going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. One of the largest advantages of having a soft tonneau cover is because of how affordable they are. They're still going to give you a lot of the same protections from elements as a hard tonneau cover. They're just not going to have all the extra security features as a hard tonneau cover. Because at the end of the day, someone could walk over here and just cut this open. But if you're not really hauling a lot of really important items, like some expensive tools, I think you're going to be fine for the most part. And what a soft roll-up tonneau cover also does for you is also keep any of those items that you don't want to be seen out of mind. The other great thing about a soft tonneau cover is they're typically going to be a roll-up style, and they're going to get really compact. So to show you what I mean is, once I open this up, the way we're going to unravel this is we're going to have two tabs inside of here. We're going to undo one. There's going to be this silver lever right here. That'll release. And then I'm going to repeat that on the other side. That's nice that we have two of them because they're going to keep our tensioners on this nice and well kept. You also want to probably keep a little bit of downward pressure when you do this because this is holding down a lot of force. But to show you what I'm talking about is, see how compact this is getting? This is going to stay like this the entire way. And one of the advantages of this style compared to anything like a hard tonneau cover that might fold up is a lot of hard tonneau covers take up a lot of space from your bed. So if you have a shorter bed like we do today, you're really going to want to maximize the amount of space that you have in here. And that's where this is really going to shine. And to make sure everything does stay in place, we are going to have these elastic bands that come underneath here with these hooks. These hooks are going to grab onto these eyelets on the back, and that's going to keep everything staying compact and from unraveling. Now I know I've talked a lot about how this isn't going to take up a lot of space, so let me get a measurement to show you. So I'm going to go from the back of our bed to the furthest point out that sticks out. That's going to be a little bit over 5 inches. Really not a whole lot of space at all, especially compared to a lot of other options out there. Now, it is going to sit up a little bit above our bed. So the amount of space we are going to have in here, usable space, is still going to be pretty good. That's going to be just under 19 inches. That's plenty of room. You're going to be able to put some smaller totes if you need to push it all the way over here. And with this being softer, even if you do have to push maybe something larger like a fridge, this will be able to be pushed a bit too. Now it is going to stick up from our bed rails just a bit. We're going to measure from the top of this tonneau cover when it's rolled up, and that's going to sit a little bit under 5 inches. So even in that respect, it is still remaining very compact. And that's really mainly going to impact the way you drive with it, especially if you like to look out your back window when you drive. You are hardly going to notice it in this position. And the way this is going to attach to your bed is via these clamps. They're actually going to use the track system that comes with your Tacoma, and it's going to make this process a lot easier to use too. And what I really like about this design is it's not going to require any drilling. You're just going to have to use a couple tools you might have in your garage to make sure everything cinches together. And the way the tonneau cover is actually going to attach to our rails is via this hook and loop. That's how it's going to stay seated down over here. Now the way the tonneau cover itself actually attaches to the rails is going to be a little bit more complicated than that, but we'll talk about that more during the installation process. So today the truck that we're actually working on is actually one of our co-workers, Ryan's truck, and we're going to get his thought on this. So Ryan, why did you choose this tonneau cover?
So I got this mostly just because I was looking at the soft roll-ups. I actually used to have a hard cover, the trifold. And for a while I thought, why don't I just replace it? I liked it. And turns out I didn't like it. Because if you talk to anyone who has these Tacomas, The 5-foot bed
Yeah.
is, you can't do anything with it. So I really wanted to get my bed space back, so that's kind of why I got this. As far as going with the Truxedo, what really sold me is the smallest of things. This little spring over here that kind of bends and flexes kind of, you know, as the seasons change. My last cover didn't really have that. It was, you know, a couple of clamps and it clamped down to here, and then, you know, it didn't bend and flex at all, because, you know, here in Missouri we have the summers and winters and all that kind of thing. So I really like that. And then the lever too was really cool.
That sounds perfect, because you really do notice how those springs are engaging when you look at the surface of this tonneau cover, and it's really tight for a soft cover. And of course, they're always going to get a little bit of like vibrations or it moving a little bit when you are driving, but I think this is holding up greatly.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, so hardcover, you know, as we know, is great for if you want that security. Me, when I'm using my tonneau cover, usually I'm putting stuff in the back, driving, I get somewhere and I take it out. So I don't always need that security. So my last tonneau cover was actually more protection than I needed. So thought I'd kind of do it right the second time around, get my bed space back, and yeah, just have a cover that's just easier to work with. I don't have to do one of these, you know. I can kind of just unlatch it here if I'm just by myself, you know. Roll it up. This lever still sticks a little bit.
Oh yeah.
There we go. Watch out for that. And just kind of roll it back here. And then I'm already thinking about grabbing my groceries, grabbing my golf clubs, my fishing poles, and I'm not having to, you know, waste my energy doing that. So yeah, and then I can kind of grab what I need to and leave it unfolded. So
Awesome. Thank you for letting us know about that.
yeah, sure.
And as far as the installation goes, it's fairly straightforward. Now, there are a few spots where you might need to make some tweaks, but we talk about that later on. And if you are curious to see what this process is going to look like, just stay tuned. We'll walk you through it. To begin our installation, I like to lay everything out and try to keep it to the relative side. So you'll notice I already have my side rails in place, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But where we're going to start off with is with this seal. There's a few things we need to know about this seal when we're placing it on. So you'll see underneath here we have this red strip. This is just going to be protecting this adhesive on the bottom. I'm going to wait to take that off. And the way, I'm just going to show you the way this goes on. You notice we have our tracks right here. This is going to sit right on top of that. So we're just going to get a rough estimate of what we're dealing with. If it falls off, that's okay. You just want to get a look at this. And if you look how this sits at the very edge, you notice we have a lot of it just popping off. So what I'm going to do is actually cut this at an angle so this can sit more flush against our bed rails. Now I'm going to find a pretty solid surface to do this on top of. I'm going to grab a utility knife and just kind of roughly do kind of a 45-degree angle cut, kind of marking out where I'm going to cut first, then solidifying that cut. Now this material is going to be a bit hard to cut through just because it is foam and it's going to be resistant to cutting. So that is nice about it, but just give it a few cuts and you should eventually get through it. Afterwards, we're going to try to clean this up, but now I want to just see how this is going to fit over there. And looking at it now, it's looking pretty good because what we're aiming to do is just cover this rounded section here at the top. The stuff here on the side, that's okay. That's going to be protected by this portion here. So we'll just make sure we do that on the other side too. So what I recommend doing from here is just starting to peel a little bit of that red strip off, revealing that adhesive side. What we're going to do here is just throw this over the top. And we're just going to put this at the edge. And we're going to lay this flat, making sure we have a good connection. And then I'm going to come over to the rest of it and make sure it's sitting where I want it to be. After when I have the rest of this flush up here, then I can start removing the rest of that red strip. And when I'm removing this, I'm also applying pressure downwards, making sure everything looks pretty straight. And it is where it needs to be. Applying that pressure downwards too is going to make sure I have a good fit. The next two things we'll be doing is prepping our rails. So as you can see, I already have this up here. And the way you're going to want this to sit is we're going to have this one side, and it's going to have our mechanisms, and that's going to be for closing our tonneau cover. We want to make sure that this is facing inside towards our bed and is on the tailgate side. You're also going to have this hook and loop section. We want that to be facing outside of our truck. Once you've established that, you can simply just set this on top of your truck bed rails. We're not going to have it anywhere specifically at the moment. We'll adjust that later on. But now we're going to come over to the track system. All we have to do at the moment is remove this cap, set this to the side. We'll put it on after when we've completely installed our clamps. And speaking of those clamps, we're going to install them now. So what I actually recommend is unthreading this bolt. Once that's unthreaded all the way, we can remove the top portion of that clamp. There it is. I'll set that down. And then we're going to flip this around. We're going to have this C cutout. We're going to have this enter in to our track system, and it's going to sit just like this. Now we're going to install 3 clamps this way. One's going to be nearest to our cab. The second one's going to be in the center, and the last one is going to be closest to our tailgate. With both of those clamps started, I'm going to go back to our rails, and I'm going to flip it over now. And we're going to show the underbelly. You're going to have this foam side, but you'll notice we don't have any foam padding here at the edge. And we're about to fix that now. We're going to take this circular foam piece. It's going to be cut into 4 sections. I'm going to remove one of those and line it up to the contours of that corner. And place it down. Apply some force. Once that's on here, then I can repeat this on the other side. We're going to start putting on our tonneau cover. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure this is on the right side. So you'll notice we have this beam that goes across. We want this to be closest to our bulkhead. We're also going to have this foam section here. We want to make sure that is facing down towards that weather strip that we just put on earlier. And when you're doing this, you just kind of want to roughly place it where it's going to sit nearest to your bulkhead. And we're trying to make this parallel to our cab. Now, of course, this isn't going to be perfect to start off with, but then we can make some adjustments. After when we've made some adjustments, then we're going to come over to one of our rails, and we're going to start connecting these. The way these are going to connect is you'll see we have that section that is popping out. That is going to connect into that beam that that I showed you earlier. So if I can just find that opening real quick, there it is. I'm just going to slide this down because this does move. It is a little bit tricky to move when it's at this point. But there it is. Shift that down and try to push it into one another. There we go. Once you have that started on one side, then we can repeat that on the other side. We're going to start trying to cinch this down. So what we're going to do is grab the top section of that clamp. The way this is going to go on is we're going to start with the rear clamp that is closest to our tailgate. So what I'm going to do actually is put this end cap back on, just so I know how close I can get it to the end of this, because this end cap is going to be in my way just a little bit. So I'm going to push this over. I'm going to want it right about here. This is as close as we can get to that end cap. And then the way we're going to put this top part of our clamp on is, you'll see I have 3 different sections I can go from. If we look at our instructions, they'll let us know for this rear clamp, we want to use the one that is the furthest one back. Just like that. Then we're going to grab our bolt, and we're just going to hand tighten this. We don't want to tighten this down all the way because we're most likely going to have to make adjustments later on. And then you repeat this on the other side. And for the other two clamps, for the center one, we're going to try to center this up between the other two clamps. And this is actually going to sit in this center divot. So it's going to be easy to remember. Now for your rear clamp, or the one that's closest to our cab, this is going to sit in this divot that is closest to the rails. Once we've established that, we're going to start tightening these down. And the reason I chose this spot for the clamp closest to your tonneau cover is I wanted something that's going to give us a lot of tension on the back side of this, but I'm also going to be able to reach where this is placed. At this point, I want to make sure that my tonneau cover is even on both sides. So I'm just going to measure from this ridge, get how much it's sticking out on one side, and make sure it's the same on the other side. Now if it's off, all I have to do is grab it from more of the center and just kind of pull on it gently, and it should slide over a little bit. And then check it again. Once this is centered up, we're going to come over to the clamps that are closest to our cab side, and we're going to tighten these up all the way. You're just going to want a fair bit of resistance when you do this. Once you have one tightened down, you repeat that process on the other side. And once this is cinched down completely over here, then you're going to grab the tonneau cover and unroll it until we get to the middle clamp. After you tighten both sides all the way down, then we're just going to unroll this. I'm going to try to keep this pretty tight when I do it, making sure this is going along our hook and loops. Then eventually we're going to reach a spot where we're right in front of these clamps. And the reason why we're doing this like this is to make sure that this is where it should be. Because let's say our hook and loop system isn't matching up correctly, what's probably happening is our rails are either going out some or in some. So we're just coming by, checking this out, making sure it's pretty level and even on both sides. And if it is, then we can tighten down this middle clamp. After when both sides are tightened here, then we'll repeat that same process for the last clamp. Now that it's tightened down, we're going to test it out to make sure we have a good fit. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to take the very edge and find that channel that is going to hook right into, and then you're going to push down on this. I recommend using two hands, spreading them out. We'll put even pressure on it. That will be a little bit stiff when you first do it. You also notice it kind of bunches up a bit here. An easy way to solve that is just to pull that out some and pull on it. When that looks good, we'll try closing our tailgate, making sure we're getting a good seal underneath this strip. And right now, I'm liking the fit we have. Now, if you do have any issues, what I recommend doing is just adjusting how this sits. What's pretty common is the very end of this tonneau cover isn't back far enough, so you can just undo those clamps, pull it back just a little bit, and make sure we're getting a good seal over here. Another issue you might run into is over on the back end, there might be a gap underneath this corner. What I'd recommend doing is just tightening those rear clamps a bit more to see if that cinches down. And from here, we're going to open this back up. Again, we're just going to pull these levers. And the reason why we want this up is because, you know, it's right here. We have this section that just has hard plastic on it. We don't want that. What we want to do is to grab those foam pads, because we're going to have two more now. I'll peel that off, fit it to the contours of that plastic part, and stick it on there. I'll make sure to do that on the other side, and then try this out again. At this point, it's a good idea just to check this out one more time. Since we do have those foam pads on, we just want to make sure everything's going to seat down properly. So make sure it clicks. We can shut our tailgate. And that's looking pretty good. And that will conclude our look at the installation and some of the features of the Truxedo TruXport soft tonneau cover on the back of our 2015 Toyota Tacoma. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.